Basilides fragment 11 comes from Clement Stromata 4.25.162. Here we read that Basilides supposes that Justice and her daughter Peace remain arranged as entities in the eighth sphere, or Ogdoad. When scholars have read this, both scholars many generations ago and recent ones, they typically try to assimilate this fragment to the report of Irenaeus, who claims that for Basilides, Nous, the divine mind, was born from Father, and from Nous was born Logos, from Logos, Phronesis, from Phronesis, wisdom and power, and from power and wisdom, other powers, rulers, and angels. But combining this report with the fragment of Clement to get 8 ands in an Ogdoad is hazardous. After all, in Irenaeus, the figures of Nous and Phronesis, wisdom and power, aren't ever said to be members of an Ogdoad. There's only 5 of them, 6 if you include the father. One only gets an Ogdoad by adding in this, frankly, random fragment that is preserved by Clement, who mentions both righteousness and peace. But using this method is like connecting 2 puzzle pieces together from completely different puzzles. Scholars might see a potential congruence, but they end up force-fitting the evidence. We can't assume that for Basilides, the Ogdoad was a series of aeons, such as we have in later Valentinian systems. In these other systems, the aeons are paired, which is not the case for Basilides. Peace is specifically identified as the daughter of justice, not the consort of justice. And both justice and peace, at any rate, are feminine in Greek. And note that justice and peace are moral virtues, whereas the beings emanated in Irenaeus are mostly intellectual powers. They don't fit well together. Jean-Daniel Dubois takes an ethical reading of the fragment. The fragment defines justice and peace among the virtues of the perfect Gnostics, which are typical of their freedom from the negative emotions of the soul. I think that he's right that peace and justice were virtues that Basilidians honored. But Clement indicates that for Basilides, the Ogdoad was a real entity or place. It was Clement, in fact, who wanted to move the discussion from physics to ethics, as he says. Now, the idea of an Ogdoad as a group of eternal beings encircling the Father seems later than the more basic idea of an Ogdoad as the eighth sphere, such as we find it in the Hermetica. It was part of ancient cosmology to have a series of belts, 7 spheres of the planets, and an eighth sphere of fixed stars over that. This was a cosmology known certainly as early as Plato. For their part, Valentinians could imagine the Ogdoad both as a set of paired aeons and as a sphere or realm. Specifically, the Ogdoad is the realm where wisdom dwells above matter and the creator being the Hebdomad. A soul assimilated to things above can become deathless and enter into the Ogdoad, otherwise known as the heavenly Jerusalem and the bridal chamber. When the soul enters the Ogdoad, it becomes a noetic eternity or aeon itself. If one accepts the system of Irenaeus, it does not make much sense to say that Basilides believed in an Ogdoad as a realm, for there are far more than 8 levels of reality. There are, in fact, 365 heavens before one reaches the higher divine dimension. A system in which an 8th realm sits on top of 7 planetary realms would seem at least to contradict a system in which there were 365 levels. Are we to conceive of the 365 levels as each containing a 7th and 8th realm? If the 365 heavens are still in the realm of the Hebdomad, how is the realm above 365 still counted as the 8th? I don't think that Irenaeus' report about the 365 heavens is, in fact, reliable. At any rate, we should not expect the cosmology of Basilides to conform to the cosmology in Irenaeus' report. We can only try to discern what the Ogdoad meant for Basilides by looking at other Alexandrian sources. In the Hermetica, the Ogdoad is the realm beyond the planetary spheres, where godlike beings called powers truly exist and sing a hymn to the Father. Beyond the Ogdoad is the Father's realm, presumably the Ennead, or ninth realm, where souls become powers in God and gods themselves. The Ogdoad is a real place that can be seen by noetic vision. Only in the eighth realm can the ninth be revealed. According to Clement, the Ogdoad was both a realm, that is, the fixed sphere of stars above the planets, and a timeless time, which indicated the climax of the believer's rest. The pure in heart are promoted to the inheritance of the Ogdoadic beneficence, which is associated with a pure vision of insatiable contemplation. The person who finished the final progress in flesh goes through the holy hebdomad, arrives at the Father's court, and the Lord's abode, indicative of the eighth realm. The Ogdoad of Basilides is mentioned in the Testimony of Truth, assuming here that Basilides is the one who completed the course of Valentinus. And Ogdoad is also in the Refutator's report on Basilides. It's the realm where the great ruler sits enthroned with his son at his right hand. This great ruler is the lord of the cosmic realm, but his sphere of management is everything down from the stars to the moon. The great ruler is also simply called Ogdoad and is identified as the god beyond the God of Abraham. Logically, the Ogdoad is above the Hebdomad, which is another realm and the name for another ruler. In the end, we must confess that we don't really know what the Ogdoad was for Basilides himself. There's not enough surviving evidence, and the sources stand in tension. The way that Clement talks, however, indicates that the Ogdoad for Basilides was not a set of beings or aeons. Clement says that justice and peace remain in the Ogdoad, established there, not that they make up part of it as members. Thus, I would hypothesize that for Basilides, the Ogdoad was a realm, possibly a realm where souls also obtained rest. It was probably not the highest realm, but it was a realm in which divine virtues could be fixed. The idea of a personified attributes of God was common. In Hesiod's Theogony, verse 902, justice and peace are daughters of Zeus and Themis. Justice appears in Hesiod's Works and Days, sitting beside her father Zeus, reporting on evil deeds. She is, in fact, often said to sit by Zeus, keeping a record of human wrongs. Plutarch writes that the eye of justice watches over all that happens at sea. Justice also appears in Jewish mythology. Justice and peace kiss in Psalm 84:11 in the Septuagint, and justice is the preparation and rectitude of God's throne in other verses. Philo continued to imagine justice enthroned beside God as an assessor and punisher in God's train. Divine justice punishes tyrants, according to 4th Maccabees. And the idea of justice giving birth to peace makes perfect sense because a just society and a just person makes way for peace. If justice and peace are in the Ogdoad, then they stand above the cosmic system and they have an influence on it. They are manifestations of God's providence, which indicates that the world and its management is basically good. Justice and peace are characters in God's providential play called history.